to Wendy Asefo getting arrested. How the tables have turned. Just saying. CC Mama says, hold on.
Take those cuffs back off. You can sit back down, relax for a second. So just give me about 30 minutes. The paperwork ready. We're ready to go, okay? I'll let you make that call and see what's okay?
See, the wild thing about all this is that nobody connected the dots at first. When Wendy got picked up on those insurance fraud charges, people thought it was just another RHP storyline, another headline, another messy moment in TV land. But what came next hit different. Because barely weeks later, Mia, the same woman who clowned Wendy, the same woman who laughed at her arrest, got stopped at the airport on a larceny warrant. And that's when people started whispering. That's when the timelines started overlapping. That's when the pattern got too clear to ignore. 2 women, 2 arrests, 2 charges tied to taking something that wasn't theirs. 2 scandals on the same franchise in the same season. And if you really follow the trail from the shade to the ego to the sudden legal chaos, this story goes way darker than fans ever realized.
She just messaged me a couple days ago. You know, she's one of the very only, like the only ones who is like, you know, I'm so proud. You know, what she said was, God has you covered. Right? So this is, I need a second. Because
I get it.
Bitch, I opened my phone. I had no idea what was even going on. And I'm like, I'm shocked.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I'm very, very shocked because I felt Miss 4 Degrees had it together. Okay? I thought she had it together. I mean, isn't Eddie an attorney? For heaven's sakes, like what the?
See, the wildest part about this whole situation is that nobody saw the connection coming. When the Wendy Asefo arrest story first hit the blogs, it felt like just another messy chapter in the RHP universe. These shows have scandals, sure. They have drama, they have chaos, they have big public meltdowns. But nobody expected what happened next, and nobody expected the patterns that slowly started lining up in the background. And honestly, most folks still don't fully understand how deep it all goes. Because before any of the cameras caught anything, before any of the timelines synced, before Mia ever opened her mouth and threw shade, there was already a strange shadow forming around the entire franchise. And the first real crack in the surface was Wendy. Now, Wendy wasn't supposed to be the one getting dragged into legal trouble. Fans had labeled her Professor Dr. Wendy, Miss 4 Degrees. A political commentator, a professor, a public figure, she wasn't built for these kind of headlines. At least, that's what everybody thought. But real life has a funny way of flipping images inside out. And what the feds claimed they found behind the scenes changed everything. Insurance fraud, multiple search and seizure warrants, emails, bank records, burner accounts. A digital trail that investigators said didn't come from routine research, it came from someone who knew exactly where to look. The first time that detail dropped publicly, the whole fandom froze for a second. Because it didn't sound random. It didn't sound accidental. It sounded targeted. But while people were still processing Wendy's charges, while the bloggers were trying to understand what the fraud even involved, while fans were debating whether she was being framed or whether the case was actually serious, something else started brewing on the other side of the cast. Mia Thornton hopped online. And she did what Mia always does, speak without filters. Laughing, mocking, talking slick. Calling Wendy Miss 4 Degrees getting arrested, calling out Eddie, throwing one-liners that went viral instantly. People ate it up. Memes, tweets, clips circulating every few minutes. But there was one line, one moment, that hit way harder in hindsight. The livestream host said it clearly, almost too casually. I had to get the footage of Mia reacting to Wendy O getting arrested, how the tables have turned. And boss, that single sentence aged like prophecy. Because barely weeks later, Mia found herself at the center of her own legal mess. And not a small one either. Larceny. An airport arrest. A furnished condo. Items missing. A $11,000 furniture dispute that suddenly didn't look like a misunderstanding anymore. Body cam footage. Police asking, "You know you have a warrant, right?" Mia nodding quietly like someone who already knew what time it was. The same woman who clowned Wendy, the same woman who laughed at her, the same woman who used Wendy's arrest as a punchline, was now standing in the exact same spotlight. And that's when fans started connecting dots the producers never said out loud. Because when you strip away the personalities, the glamour, the show storylines, when you remove all the TV drama and just look at the core facts, something eerie pops out of the timeline. 2 women, 2 arrests, 2 scandals tied to accusations of taking things that weren't theirs, 2 cases with financial shadows, 2 storylines that mirrored each other more than anybody expected. But here's where things get really interesting and way darker. People think these arrests happened in isolation. They think Wendy got caught up in something unrelated and Mia got hit with her own situation individually. But that's not actually how the streets talk about it. That's not how insiders describe it. And that's not how fans started piecing it together after the footage dropped. Because when you go back in time, when you rewind the tape, when you slow down the timeline and look closer at the chaos, you realize something silently shifted behind the scenes long before either woman faced a warrant. There were weeks, months, even of tension building between the cast. Shade thrown, trust broken, private conversations leaking through social media, arguments that didn't feel like TV arguments, they felt personal. And Mia? She wasn't just watching Wendy fall. She was enjoying it, living in it, feeding off it. But karma doesn't miss, boss. Especially in a world where cameras roll constantly and everything becomes public eventually. Because the exact category Wendy got accused of, the exact type of wrongful gain claim, matched the same wrongful possession allegation Mia faced. Different cases, different states, different investigators, but the same pattern on paper. And fans didn't ignore it. Suddenly Twitter began to say, "Yo, why this look like the same storyline twice? This is too weird to be coincidence. Same season, same franchise, same scandal energy." Mia laughed way too hard. God humbled her quick. Clips were posted side by side. Mia mocking Wendy, then Mia getting arrested. Commentators stitching videos saying, "Nah, this ain't random." And that's where the theory started. Not a conspiracy. Not a wild storyline. But a pattern. A pattern that didn't start with Wendy. And didn't end with Mia. Because what people don't realize is that both of these arrests happened in a time where Bravo was dealing with internal leaks, production conflict, and cast tension spilling over into real life. And if there's anything history shows, reality TV and real reality often cross lines in ways nobody expects. Behind the scenes, the pressure builds. Off-camera tensions rise. Cast alliances fall apart. People get sloppy. People get reckless. People get bold. They say too much. They move too wild. They trust the wrong folks. They underestimate how far certain things can spiral. And when legal trouble hits one person, it almost never stops there. But here's the real twist and the darkest part of part 1. There were signs before either woman got arrested. Signs people ignored. Signs that now look like red flags. Signs that now feel like early warnings. Clues hidden in the shade. Hints buried in the episodes. Moments where you could see the storm forming if you knew where to look. Because Mia wasn't laughing out of nowhere. Wendy wasn't spiraling out of nowhere. The energy between them wasn't casual. It was layered, complicated, personal, heated. It wasn't beef. It wasn't drama. It was something deeper, something that made both their downfalls feel connected even if nobody said it out loud. And now, looking back, the pattern is almost too clean. 2 scandals. 2 egos. 2 downfalls. 2 linked moments that didn't just shake RHOP, they exposed an entire undercurrent nobody was paying attention to. Because the truth behind these back-to-back arrests goes further, gets darker, and cuts way deeper than fans ever realized. The thing about patterns is that they rarely start at the moment people notice them. By the time the world saw Wendy walking into court with her lawyers, and Mia standing at the airport looking stunned in that body cam footage, the real story had already been unfolding quietly for months. Maybe longer. Maybe in ways nobody was paying attention to. Because before either woman got cuffed, before the cameras caught their reactions, Before social media exploded with side-by-side clips, there were already small fractures forming under the surface. And if you go back far enough, you'll see exactly where those cracks began. It started with conversations that didn't make the episode, moments that were never aired, small tensions that felt harmless at the time, but now, looking back, feel like the earliest warnings of a much bigger storm. It started with trust, or, more accurately, the loss of it. See, Wendy built her persona on discipline, precision, stability, degrees, image, a controlled life. But even the strongest image cracks when the pressure hits. The paperwork the feds talked about, emails, burner accounts, bank activity, that wasn't the kind of thing you stumble onto randomly. That wasn't the kind of thing someone uncovers through basic research. That was the kind of thing you find when you already know where to look. Which is why fans didn't ignore a different small detail. Someone had been talking. Someone had been leaking. And someone had been feeding information to the right people at the right time. Nobody said the name. Nobody pointed fingers. But the timing was suspicious enough to make people think twice. Especially because Wendy's downfall didn't just hurt Wendy. It shook the entire cast. It shifted relationships. It shifted alliances. It shifted loyalty. And in that shift, Mia moved differently. Not louder. Not smarter. Just differently. There were moments where she was suddenly too comfortable. Too confident. Too quick to speak on Wendy's situation, like she knew the whole playbook already. Too ready to mock a case that was deeper than people realized. And the more she laughed, the more suspicious the audience became. But Mia wasn't paying attention. Not to the patterns. Not to the timing. And definitely not to the whispers forming around her. Because while she was too busy trolling Wendy online, while she was making jokes about degrees and husbands, while she was throwing shade from the sidelines like she was untouchable, her own situation was slowly tightening behind her. And the crazy part? It didn't start with the airport arrest, or the condo story, or the missing furniture. It started months before that, quietly, when she and Gordon were falling apart publicly. When allegations began floating around from both sides. When finances, business deals, and property disputes started taking over their storyline. It was subtle, but the red flags were everywhere. Arguments about assets. Confusion about ownership. Questions about what belonged to who. Tension around business responsibilities. Mia making moves without Gordon. Gordon making moves without telling Mia. It wasn't dramatic enough to make headlines at the time, but it was messy enough to leave a trail. And trails always lead somewhere. By the time the condo situation surfaced, the story was already way past repair. Investigators said items were taken. Neighbors said they saw people moving furniture. Reports said things disappeared overnight. Other sources claimed Mia blamed Gordon. Another article said she left with a man who wasn't him. It was chaos. Messy, quiet chaos that became loud once the airport arrest hit the internet. And that's when fans finally connected the dots. Wendy's case involved money. Mia's case involved property. Both cases involved accusations of wrongful gain. Both cases involved investigations deeper than the blogs originally said. Both cases came after months of tension between the cast. And both cases hit the public eye at the exact moment the show needed drama the least. Which made people ask the question nobody wanted to say out loud. Was this just coincidence, or something bigger? Because when two cast members fall publicly, back-to-back, in scandal categories that mirror each other, the timing doesn't feel accidental. It feels strategic. It feels connected. It feels like somebody somewhere knew exactly when each story was going to explode. And the craziest part is this. The energy between Wendy and Mia had been off for a long time. People thought it was personality differences, or jealousy, or bad episodes, or petty shade. But what if it was something else? What if the tension was tied to information? Something one of them knew. Something one of them said. Something one of them didn't expect to come back around. Because in these franchises, the real drama isn't what happens on camera. It's what happens behind the scenes. Group chats, DM conversations, deleted messages, half-truths, screenshots saved for later, words repeated to the wrong person. And Wendy's case? Someone gave the feds enough detail to search everything. Her emails, her bank, her accounts, her private communication. That level of detail doesn't come from outsiders. It comes from someone who's been close enough, long enough, to understand how Wendy moves. But Mia's case? Her situation didn't require a whistleblower. Her downfall came from movement. People seeing too much. People noticing things weren't adding up. People telling what they saw. 2 different roads. Same destination. And that's why fans didn't let go of this theory. Because once one person falls, the spotlight gets hungrier. It moves. It searches. It finds the next weak link. The next messy storyline. The next person with skeletons peeking out. Reality TV doesn't destroy people. It exposes what's already there. Wendy's charges exposed her weakest moment. Mia's arrest exposed hers. But the quiet part? The part that hasn't been said out loud yet? Is that both situations exposed a bigger dysfunction sitting at the center of their entire cast. People weren't just dealing with personal issues. They were dealing with public pressure, marriages cracking, financial stress, friendships breaking, producers pushing, storylines overlapping, and the kind of emotional burnout most viewers never see. When you add all that together, something is bound to snap. And for Wendy, it snapped in the form of a federal investigation. For Mia, it snapped in the form of a warrant waiting at an airport. Same franchise, same season, same energy, same downfall arc. If these 2 are the first to fall, who's next? Because patterns don't stop once they start. They continue. They repeat. And they expose everything in their path. The thing people don't realize is that the downfall never ends with the scandal you see on the surface. Arrests, charges, court hearings, those are just the parts that make the blogs. The real story happens quietly, long before the cameras show up, and long after the headlines die down. By the time Wendy and Mia were both trending for the wrong reasons, their lives had already shifted in ways that couldn't be undone. Not because of the legal trouble, but because of what the legal trouble revealed. Part 3 begins where most people stop paying attention, the aftermath. And the aftermath is where the truth finally shows itself. Because once both women were dealing with legal pressure at the same time, something unexpected started happening behind the scenes. People began talking. Not fans. Not blogs. Not social media. Cast members. Quiet phone calls. Private conversations. Long messages between people who hadn't spoken in months. Producers asking questions they never asked before. Assistants whispering about timelines. Stylists overhearing things backstage. Friends suddenly distancing themselves. People asking each other things like, "Did you know about Wendy's situation before it broke? Did Mia tell you anything about the condo? Did anyone warn the producers? Did someone snitch? Did someone leak something?" The kind of questions you only ask when the room doesn't feel safe anymore. And the more people talked, the more a different theory began to form, much darker than the simple karma narrative that fans posted online. A theory that suggested something deeper was at play. Because when 2 scandals hit the same cast, in the same season, in the same pattern, with the same energy, people start wondering, was this coincidence, or was someone pulling strings? Now, nobody said the word set up. Nobody said production. Nobody pointed fingers. But there were signs, small details that didn't sit right. Like the timing. The way both stories surfaced right before key filming windows. The way blogs seemed to know certain details faster than insiders. The way background information that should have been private suddenly became public. The Wendy case documents were dense, complicated, and filled with details that investigators don't usually broadcast. Yet somehow, bloggers had summaries of it within hours. Mia's story broke the same way, bodycam footage released almost instantly, police reports circulating before she could even call Gordon, news outlets pushing the story like it was a major criminal investigation instead of a condo dispute. Someone, somewhere, was feeding information at a pace that wasn't normal. And the cast felt it. Some said nothing. Some pretended not to notice. Some tried to stay out of it, terrified of being the next person whose private life might float to the surface. But a few people started connecting dots. Not publicly, not on the show, just quietly among themselves. They noticed the same similarities fans noticed. Wendy's fraud allegations, Mia's larceny arrest, both involving property, both involving financial trail disputes, both involving investigators who moved way faster than expected. But then they noticed something the fans didn't. Both situations involved people who used to be friends. And that changes the entire angle. Because when two former allies fall in the same way, it raises one question. Who were they talking to when they were still cool? Because friendship means access. Access means information. And information is the most dangerous currency in reality television. When you know someone long enough, you learn things they never expected to matter. Things they believed were harmless. Things they said casually. Things they assumed were safe. Where they bank. Who manages their money. How their house is set up. Who their landlord is. Where their spare key is. Who they argued with. Which family member handled their paperwork. What they said about a bill. What they said about a deal. What they said about something missing or owed or owned. Stuff you don't think twice about until someone needs it. And when Wendy and Mia drifted apart, none of those details disappeared. They just lingered. And when both women fell, the cast realized something chilling. Everyone had information about someone. Everyone had a weakness. Everyone had a detail that could ruin them if it ever became public. And in the months after the arrests, the cast became hyper-aware that the wrong conversation could be the spark that ignites the next downfall. The show shifts. Friendships shift. Loyalties shift. You start watching what you say. You start watching who you trust. You start wondering if someone is recording the room. You start wondering if every joke might end up on a blog. You start feeling like you're part of something bigger than a cast. You're part of a system designed to expose you the moment you slip. And that's where the real story of Wendy and Mia intersects. Both women underestimated how fast their worlds could collapse. Wendy thought her image was too strong. Mia thought her personality was too big. Both thought their issues were private. Both thought their mistakes were small. Both thought they could control their narrative. Neither one realized that once a crack forms in your story, the world won't just notice, it will dig. And dig. And dig. Until something gives. For Wendy, it was the paper trail. For Mia, it was the movement caught on tape. For the cast, the message was clear. Nobody is safe. Not when everyone has history. Not when everyone has secrets. Not when everyone knows each other's weak points. Not when one wrong detail can become a headline with the push of a button. And that's the part fans never fully saw. The fear. Not fear of jail. Not fear of lawsuits. Not fear of the blogs. Fear of each other. Fear that the next scandal won't come from strangers, but from someone they sat beside at dinner scenes, group trips, confessionals, and reunions. Someone who already knows the story you hope never sees daylight. The truth always comes out. Not because people confess. Not because investigators dig. Not because fans speculate. It comes out because reality TV creates pressure that exposes everyone eventually. And Wendy and Mia were just the opening chapter of a much bigger shift. Their scandals didn't just shake the show. They exposed a system, a pattern, a cycle. Now the cast moves differently. They talk differently. They trust differently. They watch their back differently. Because they've learned the harshest rule of their world. Your downfall doesn't arrive when you're wrong. Your downfall arrives when someone decides it's time. And for Wendy and Mia, the timing was identical, which means something even darker. If these two fell for similar reasons, in the same season, through the same cracks, then this wasn't the end of anything. This was the beginning. If you made it to the end of this, then you already understand something most viewers never do. Downfalls like this don't happen because someone slipped. They happen because the truth eventually finds a way out, through a text, through a whispered conversation, through one person who says just a little too much to the wrong ear at the wrong time. Wendy's collapse wasn't an accident. Mia's arrest wasn't random. These weren't isolated scandals. They were signs, warnings of a much bigger shift happening behind the scenes. And if you watched closely, you felt it too. The tension. The silence. The fear. The way every cast member suddenly started choosing their words carefully, like they knew the spotlight could jump to them next. Because that's the truth, it can. When one cast member falls, the pressure moves. It searches for the next weak point, the next shady timeline, the next buried detail, the next private mistake waiting to go public. And when that moment comes, when the next story breaks and the next secret detonates, you're going to want the full picture, not the edited version. Not the sugar-coated headline, but the real story told without fear and without filters. So here's what to do next. Subscribe. Not because it helps the channel, but because you deserve the full truth before everyone else starts scrambling for answers. Turn on notifications. The next scandal won't wait. These stories never drop gently. They hit hard, fast, and without warning. And finally, drop a comment telling us who you think the spotlight lands on next. Because if this season proved anything, it's that nobody is untouchable.